And we're trying to record. There we go. We're trying to record these talks, and unfortunately, there is a precursor to that, which is that lovely voice you just heard. So, just a reminder: if you are on Zoom at the start of each of our talks every Sunday, you will hear that voice. It might be kind of loud if you're wearing headphones. So, thank you for understanding.
Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone. This morning, I'm so happy to be with you. I'm so happy to see everybody from Tahoe and from far and wide. Welcome. This morning, I am speaking on the art of communicating. Um, when times are challenging, as they are now, we need courage. We need courage. We need to be there for each other. And we need to connect where we share from the heart, you know. And when we do, we often find that we're all feeling similarly and that we're all going through, similar things. And in that, we realize we're not alone. We're not alone. Um, Last year, when we all went into lockdown, I would walk at Lake Siskiyou every day. I had to get out of my little tiny home. And I would walk at Lake Siskiyou. And every so often, I would see this woman on the trail. And it seemed like she was always walking at the same time, the same route. And we'd say hello. And by about the third time I saw her, we started talking. And, we had our safe distance going on. But there was quite a few days in those early days of that lockdown that she was the only person that I saw. She's the only person that I talked to in person. And even if I only saw her for a few minutes, I couldn't believe how much better I felt just having that moment of connection, just having that, kind of heart to heart moment of connection. And now all this time later, I've gotten to be good friends with her. Her name's Rosanna, and she's a chaplain here at the hospital in Mount Shasta. But I marvel at how Spirit provided this one person, this one dear woman on my daily walk for me to connect with in that time when we were all very isolated. The essence of who we are is love. It is love. We are made in the image of God that is love. And so it makes so much sense that our hearts need to connect with other hearts. And one of my favorite spiritual teachers, you'll find I quote him often, is the Buddhist monk, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. And he says that understanding is the beginning of love. Understanding is the beginning of love. So if we are to love one another, then we need to make the effort to understand one another and even understand those that are difficult to understand, right? And that means being able to communicate. It means really growing our skillfulness in communication, right? I was reading an article this week on communication, and there was this little comic, and it was a scene of a wife and her husband, and in the background there was a Christmas tree, and the wife is saying to her husband, I would have thought it obvious that when I said to you I didn't want anything, I obviously meant I wanted the diamond earrings I showed you. We sometimes think we're communicating well, but actually someone has no idea what's going on inside of us. There's a lot of times so much guessing going on. There's something that psychologists call the transparency illusion. And that's the belief, that people think that what they're feeling and what they're wanting, what they're intending is just obvious, that it's crystal clear, even though they have done very little to communicate clearly what's going on inside of them. And I was thinking, it's actually even easier for this to happen on Zoom, because on Zoom, we're not getting the visceral energy. We're not getting all those nonverbal cues and the body language. So I'll I'll make sure to give you as much as possible. But it's sometimes hard to read an expression in that little box. You can wonder, does that squinting mean they're listening intensely, Or does that mean they disagree, or just maybe they're just deep in thought? So, with all the means that we have of communicating, oh gosh, sorry, I just lost my place admitting someone. Oh, there's so many people to admit. It's great. Here we go. With all the means that we have for communicating, what really matters is connection, right? You know, we want to feel connected. And so we need to develop our skill um, so that our communication is effective and it's fulfilling. Okay. Hang on here. I'm sorry. I just have to get something queued up for you. There we go. Okay. So I was thinking how fascinating the evolution of humanity has been in our means of communicating. In ancient society, people used drum beats and smoke signals. That was some of the earliest ways that we communicated. And then the United States, I think the first post office was 1775. We had the telegram and the Morse code in the 1800s. And then, of course, the huge change of having the telephone in 1950. And now we have the internet, we have cell phones, we have Zoom, church, which I'm very grateful for. It's amazing how far we've come, you know. Sometimes, though, even with all these means of connecting, we yearn for a deeper connection. I saw another cartoon where a mom and dad are huddled around their computer and they're writing an email to their son. And the email said, "Dear Andy, how have you been? Your mother and I are fine. We miss you. Please come downstairs. Please sign off your computer and come downstairs for something to eat." Love, Dad. And sometimes our communication sounds like this: leave me a voicemail at work so I can call your house. So you can email my laptop so I can text your cell and you can answer me on Facebook. You know, we have a lot of means, but the bottom line is that in all our efforts to communicate, what we thrive on is connection. And that happens through feeling that we have understanding. You know, when we don't feel understood, it can feel really lonely. It can feel really lonely. Thich Nhat Hanh has a wonderful book that I'm basing a lot of my talk today on, which is called The Art of Communicating. I highly recommend it. And in his book, he says that loneliness is the suffering of our time, and that even if we're surrounded by others, we can feel very alone. And often, you know, even when we check our emails and text, and when we, you know, send and receive them all day long, it doesn't reduce the loneliness we feel. All that scrolling on Facebook, you know, it's like we're looking for something, but we're looking for love and connection in all the wrong places. We need it from heart to heart. We need it from spirit to spirit, from soul to soul, right? So Thich Nhat Hanh says, you know, we don't know how to generate love and connect with ourselves and then connect with each other. And then that's what we need to develop. You know, I think our need for love, you know, is really most important. And, you know, our need to connect with ourselves, which means connect with spirit, and the need to connect with each other, heart to heart. You know, in our society right now, I feel like there's so much anxiety. You know, people are stressed by COVID, they're stressed by the fires, and everyone has their own personal challenges too, right? We need courage. We need courage right now. That's what you need in the face of fear. And it actually can be really discouraging when we see unskillful interactions, or if we're part of them. It's really, it's just disheartening. And when the heat is on like it is, we need to cultivate more patience with each other and breathe and bring calm and be centered and make the effort to try and understand one another. You know, there are really hot issues right now, you know, regarding COVID especially, like vaccinations and wearing a mask. Thank you all for wearing a mask and keeping each other safe. But, you know, it brings up a lot of different views and a lot of different emotions and a lot of passionate emotion, right? In my opinion, if we are going to function well as a human family, and we need to function well because we have some big problems to figure out, we must find a way to communicate effectively. And so I want to talk about the two most important skills, the two most essential skills in communicating. And they are deep listening and loving speech. Deep listening and loving speech. When we listen deeply, we gain understanding of how a person got to the view or the belief that they have, right? And with loving speech, it means we're speaking in a way that is respectful and not an attack. You know, we're speaking in a way that isn't blaming and doesn't immediately cause the other person to just shut down their heart or close their mind. And obviously this isn't easy, you know, especially when we feel strongly about our view, and especially when we feel something really important is at stake. You know, but think about it, in all of our personal relationships, if we have a conflict, the only way to get back to feeling unity, when you're feeling divided, is to find a way to respectfully speak and listen to each other and resolve differences through some kind of change or through some kind of through acceptance. And of course, you know, sometimes acceptance means to agree to disagree. My mom and I have gotten really good at that, you know, to just agree, okay, we're never going to change each other's minds on this subject. Let's just agree to disagree and focus on, you know, the places we enjoy each other and find harmony. So let's look at the skill of listening well. There's a quote, a good listener is not only popular everywhere, but after a while, she knows something. I saw another comic recently where two men are sitting on this little love seat together, and one guy has this big megaphone held to his mouth, and he's got the horn facing right against the other guy's head. And the other guy is calmly saying, John, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? You know, he's trying to tell his friend John that he was speaking in a way that was painful. It was hard to listen to. You know, he wanted to be a good listener, but it's hard to listen when someone's shouting or blaming or projecting or accusing, right? But to deeply listen, it is such a gift that we can give. And the essence of it really is to be present with presence. To be present with presence. You know, as I begin this journey as your spiritual leader, I want to do a lot of listening. You know, I love, you know, getting to know you and, you know, coming there and also, you know, talking to you on Zoom. And basically, I just want to listen. I want to know about your spiritual journey. I want to know what you love. I want to know what you want to create in life. I want to know what matters to you. And I want to know how you want to grow. I want to know these things because I, with that understanding, can better serve and support you. Another aspect of deep listening is that it helps the person you're listening to suffer less. You know, so often all we really want is someone to hold space for us, someone to just be a witness to what we're going through. You know, we have the innate intelligence to figure things out. Sometimes if we just have consciousness present, it comes to us, the answer comes to us. So often just that holding space is enough. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about how important it is that we also have a store of compassion. Like I said last week, that we spend time renewing ourselves daily so that our well of compassion and love and empathy is full. Because when it is, it's easy to hold space. You know, it's easy to just be present as presence when someone is sharing a lot of suffering. You know, it isn't easy to listen when someone's full of suffering or they're angry or they have wrong perceptions. You know, especially if they're blaming or accusing. But the key when you're dealing with that, because there's a lot of that going on these days, is to stay in the energy of compassion and realize that what they're saying is coming from suffering. It's coming from suffering. You know, and it might be they're suffering in the form of anger. They're suffering from frustration or fear, a lot of fear. Or maybe just from having a closed mind. You know, people don't realize that a closed mind is a state of suffering, you know. But when you have a mind that's open, that's spacious, that's at peace, you know that it's painful to have a closed mind, right? So we can be protected from someone's negativity. People ask me this a lot in counseling. We can be protected from someone's negativity if we can stay in our own compassion and equanimity. Cultivate that compassion and equanimity. Another thing that helps me, that's just so helpful, is to realize people's views are a product of what they've been taught. It's so much about conditioning. You know, what they've been exposed to. You know, here's an example. If you're taught from childhood that the world is flat, right? If you are told every day the world is flat, and you're taught that from your parents, that you believe are right about everything, that are all knowing, right? You're going to passionately hold that view, right? When others try to tell you, actually the world is round. And even if someone, you know, shows you a picture of the round earth, you might say, oh, that picture's photoshopped, right? I don't believe it, right? So people become conditioned. And when we realize that, when we can see that, we gain understanding, you know, and we see why it's so hard for other people to consider a new view or another view, you know. Another piece in the art of communicating is learning to use discernment to sense when there is a possibility to communicate, or when really there is no interest from the other side. There's no opening. It reminds me of a quote from Oscar Wilde, who said, I like to do all the talking myself, right? It saves time and prevents arguments. If that's the attitude of the person you're trying to communicate with, save your energy, right? Just use discernment. Marshall Rosenberg developed a training called nonviolent communication. I'm sure you're probably familiar with it. I have a wonderful friend who speaks on it. She's a great teacher that I'm going to bring as a guest speaker here. But Marshall Rosenberg emphasizes cultivating empathy. And that means we listen for the feelings and the needs under whatever someone's saying. We listen for the feelings and the needs of what that person is requesting to enrich their life. You know, in the process of both people trying to understand what each other feels and needs, if we feel that there is understanding, you know, and if we feel like someone has heard our needs, we're more likely to work together, right? To honor one another's needs. So the first key in communication is learning to become a skilled and compassionate listener, okay? The second skill, which is equally important, is how we speak. How we speak. How we speak. In Buddhism, they talk about right speech, and they have the Noble Eightfold Path in Buddhism. One of those things is right speech, and it really is encouraged in every religion. In the Bible, in Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 24, it says, "Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body." Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body. You know, to me, it's a lifelong work to learn to speak authentically, right? And at the same time, do our best to do no harm, to do no harm. Sometimes we're suffering, and we need to tell the truth about our suffering. But find the skillful way that helps the listener not become defensive and shut down to us. The key, once again, is making sure our words convey compassion and understanding. You know, we all know very well the suffering that's caused by wrong speech, right? By unkind or untruthful or violent, harsh words. So I want to share 4 elements of right speech. And this is, again, a teaching from Thich Nhat Hanh. The first one is tell the truth. Tell the truth. Don't lie or turn the truth upside down. And there's a way to tell the truth where others don't feel threatened, where they can listen, right? And remember that what we think is true might be incomplete. Our truth might be incomplete or even erroneous. We could have an erroneous perception. Imagine that. A great skill is to use I statements. I feel, or in my opinion. That way we're not insisting that our truth is the truth. There's too much of that going on. Number 2, don't exaggerate. You know how it feels when someone exaggerates a mistake you've made, and they make it 100 times worse than it is. So we don't want to exaggerate or make something more tragic just to justify our perspective. Third thing, be consistent. And that means that, there's no double talk. There's no speaking to one person one way and to another person another way because that's what's convenient, or we want to people please or, for selfish reasons. We want to stand in our truth consistently. Very important. And then lastly, use peaceful language, nonviolent communication, peaceful language. Refrain from speech that is accusing or that's judgmental. Imagine that being applied in our political climate. We need civility. We need to heal. If we want to create unity, we need civility, right, to be most effective. So before I close, I want to share, the last thing I want to share is 6 mantras of loving speech. And again, from Thich Nhat Hanh. I invite you to consider making these mantras something you regularly say to those you care about. And they are, number 1, I am here for you. I love that so much. I wrote that song this week. Sometimes that's all we need to hear. I am here for you. I'm here for you. Number 2, I know you are there, and I am very happy. I know you are there, and I'm very happy. Number 3, I know you suffer, and that is why I'm here for you. I know you suffer, and that is why I'm here for you. It gives people permission to not have to always be, cheery when they're hurting inside. I know you suffer, and that's why I'm here for you. Number 4, I suffer, please help. I suffer, please help. So clear. I need help. I need understanding. Number 5, this is a happy moment. It's important to celebrate when we're having a happy moment. We're just happy to be together, acknowledge it. This is a happy moment. And lastly, my favorite mantra, you are partly right. You are partly right. Imagine if we were all much more willing to say, you are partly right. It could save a lot of relationships. And it's usually true. There's got to be something in there that is true, from both sides. So in closing, let us remember we are all one family. I love that oneness song that John sings. We are all one family on this earth, and we will disagree fiercely at times. But we cannot move forward and solve the huge issues that we face without finding a way to listen to one another and to understand why a person feels as they do. We may not agree, but we can be conscious, mindful in our communication through deep listening, through respectful and kind speech, and through cultivating compassion. So would you join me now in affirming? My skillful communication enables understanding, reconciliation, and greater unity in all my relations. My connection with Spirit allows me to ever expand in my ability to connect with all beings, heart to heart. Thank you, everyone. God bless.